Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Hillsborough. We are an open, welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, member, friend, or guest, we are glad that you are here. We are a community of liberal, open-minded people who strive to connect with one another in love. We are defined by a covenant rather than by a statement of belief or creed. We support each other in spiritual growth, deepening of faith, and challenging one another to find more love and deep truth inside ourselves and in the world. I'd like to thank everyone that has made this special worship celebration possible. Our music today is by David Yelton. Thank you to Patty O'Connor, who is our listening ear for the day. As always, a huge thank you to Sue Livramento and AC Tharrington for producing and distributing our order of service. My name is Heather Kraft, and I will be the worship coordinator today. Our speaker today is Patty O'Connor. Originally from Arlington, Virginia, she moved to Mebane in 2010. She has worked as a nurse since 1976 and has been a member for the past 2 years after being brought to UUCH by Amy Tattersall. Today she will be speaking on our theme of the month, which is resilience. Before we create our sacred space and begin worship, let's take a moment to share any announcements for the good of the community.
Hi, I'm Aurora, and I have an announcement regarding children's religious exploration. We have it today. We will not have it Labor Day weekend, and it will start regularly every week, starting September 11th. So if you, I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but if you want your kid to be in it and have not already signed up, look in the e-news. There's a link in there. Please sign up your kids. So we have safety and contact information and allergies and that kind of stuff. And we also could use 2 more volunteers to help out just once a month or once every other month, whatever you can do. So if you're interested in that, email the RE email or let me know, and I'll get you started with the background check process for that. So thank you.
Aurora, the registration link is also on the website under Learn.
Okay, or you can go to our website under Learn and get the registration link. Thank you.
I'm Allison, and along those lines as well, we are also looking for 2 paid staff to work the early room. So if you have networks of people who would like a really great, high-paying part-time job on Sunday mornings, would you send them our way? Because we would really like to get that firmed up on a regular basis.
If there are no more announcements, let's silence our cell phone, put them into worship mode. And let's please keep our masks on since Orange County is still in the red. We will now create our sacred space by lighting our chalice, the UU symbol for the light of truth that each of us seeks, the light of hope that each of us brings, and the eternal light of love. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire by Reverend Brian Kiley. In times of darkness, we stumble towards the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we pray for the comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration. Spirit of life, as we kindle this light, help us find what we need this day. Our call to worship is "And Yet You Persist" by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Though you have been warned and given plenty of explanations, reasons to do otherwise, you have persisted. To claim a life of joy and justice. To carve out this time, this space for the renewal of your own heart. Despite all the reasons, the resistance, fighting for your attention, luring you towards fear, you persist. To practice gratitude for this day, this life that has been given, this chance to begin again. And so let us gather, that we might offer one another courage, strength, healing, hope, and a promise to persist in kindness, persevere in compassion, and prevail in a life that is for more than ourselves. Come, let us worship together. Let us stand and embody your spirit as we sing our opening hymn, Where Do We Come From? Number 1003. No? Do I have the wrong one? I'm sorry. 108. 108. I wrote it in here wrong. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a sharing community where our joys are celebrated, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. Each Sunday, we take some time to reflect on the special happenings that have occurred this week among our members and friends. Some choose to share aloud, while others choose to remain silent. Here we make room for both. For those of you who would like to share aloud, please take a moment before we begin to center yourself, collect your thoughts, so that what you share this morning is personal, heartfelt, and brief. Joys and sorrows remaining in your hearts, I invite you to come to the altar and release a stone into the vase in silence while David plays Spirit of Life. After he's played through it one time, we're all invited to join in singing. The words are printed in your order of service. We hold all of these things within the heart of the community, both spoken and unspoken, by remaining silent for a moment as we consider what has been shared and how we might respond. May the community respond, Amen, and blessed be. We have a story for all ages today. If any of the kids want to come up so that you can see the pictures. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. This is called The Hugging Tree, a story about resilience by Jill Niemart, illustrated by Nicole Wong. You guys see the picture? Yeah. On a bleak and lonely rock by a vast and mighty sea grew a lonely little tree where no tree should ever be. How she got there, no one knew. She sprouted stems and little leaves as tiny seeds will do. There's hardly any dirt for me, no forest breeze, no birds, no bees, but I will do the best I can to make this rock my home. Her tiny roots pushed day and night, and bit by bit the rock gave way. A smidge, an inch, a foot, then two. She grew and grew and grew and grew. The ocean hugged the rocky shore. I like you near me, little tree. Let's keep each other company. You guys see it? Yeah. You know that roots can do that? They can go into rock and they can break it apart. Yeah, super cool. Yeah. Soft gold sunbeams kissed her crown, as warm as honey pouring down. At night she raised her branches high to greet the moon up in the sky. I wax and wane, I ebb and flow, I cycle through from full to thin. And when I'm done, I start again. That's how life is, you know. You guys watch the moon?
I can see it sometimes in the daytime.
You can see it in the daytime sometimes, and sometimes it's little and sometimes it's big, right?
Yeah. I can see it in the half. Yeah.
One summer noon, a pair of loons landed on her canopy. You know what a canopy is?
Yeah.
The top of the tree, that's right. A pretty tree, a sparkling sea. Shall we make this place our home and raise our baby chicks right here? The little tree warmed up with pride. She spread her branches high and wide. I'll be your home, she replied. And can you tell me if you've seen the forest where my family grew? We've built our nest in trees like you quite far from here, and so you blew many nights and many days. You flew on the wind, just like we do. They built their nest, they laid their eggs, and soon 2 baby chicks were born. Summer passed and autumn too. The little tree turned red and gold. Then winter came with howling winds and cutting cold that broke her boughs. The loons flew south, the sea was all ice, the rock all snow, the moon was lost in thunderclouds. Mighty cliff, hold me tight, don't let me blow away. Little tree, with all my might, I'll hold you close, night and day. Little tree seems a little scared.
Well, it's a big tree now.
Yes. Big trees can get scared too.
You can get scared.
Storms will come and storms will go. At last, the sun melted the snow, but now the tree could not grow, for the storm had torn her roots. The moon gazed down and softly said, sometimes we lose our way, but with some help we start again. That's how life is, you know. And soon a boy came running by, skipping stones into the sea. When he saw the little tree, he stopped and stared. He touched the tiny leaves. He felt the ragged roots. He shook his head and said, I can bring you just what you need. I can help you, little tree. A tree can't hug a boy. It has no hands or arms, but it can hug you with its heart, and that is just as deep and warm.
What do you do?
Let's find out.
I'm gonna give it a hug.
Every day, hugs do help trees. Every day the boy came back carrying a full backpack. From the pack he took a tin and poured out rich brown earth. He packed the roots and tucked them in. He planted flowers round the tree and made a path for all to see. Now everyone will know that even on a granite cliff, a little tree can grow. And then he went to sleep and dreamed the things that boys dream of. So he gave it back the dirt that had been blown away from around its roots. You think that's going to help? Yeah?
There's a lot of flakes under it.
Yep. Now every day new people stop to rest beneath the little tree and dream the things we all dream of. To love, to share, to give, to dare, to grow just where we are. And to this very day they come. For on a splendid sunny rock, by a warm and bright blue sea, a great big hugging tree grows just where she was meant to be.
Right there.
Right there.
That's a good place.
That is a good place for her.
You have enough water. We couldn't pack in the roots that were on the side of the cliff. The dirt will all fall off.
That's true. But it looks like she's okay, right?
Yeah. We have enough water. We have enough
Yes, with her. Would you like to take this to class?
Just have everything we need.
Okay, now we're going to sing the children to class with Aurora and Lynn by singing the Children's Blessing, which is inside the back cover of your hymnal.
Oh, I get to take this off to speak. I'm so happy because my glasses steam up pretty easily. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name's Patty O'Connor, and The title of my talk was Survivalism to Live, Resilience to Thrive. We need them both to live our best lives. Now, I wasn't trying to really wax poetic when I wrote that, but I said, that kind of works. But anyway, when I was approached about speaking to the congregation, I agreed. I thought, at least initially, that I was going to be doing some readings, which I've done before, and I inquired about which ones. And then Heather said, well, the one you write, because you'll be doing the homily. And I just didn't want to back out at that point, so I said, okay, And she said, and the theme for the month is resilience. So I'm a nurse, I work part-time, and for a good many years I taught in my career. First I teach patients how to care for themselves, and families how to care for the patients. Then I taught college students in the nursing program at the community college for a couple of years. And later on I went to work as a nurse educator in long-term care, and I spent a lot of time teaching the employees how to care for the residents. In fact, I've spoken in front of people off and on for probably a lot of my career. However, I've always had a script. I've had a lesson plan, and so speaking without a script and writing my own is a little bit different. So bear with me, and if my voice gets shaky or I lose my spot in the page, I'll try to recover quickly. First, once again, the definitions of the terms I'll be using. One is survivalism and the other is resilience. And survivalism is a policy of continuing to try to exist, okay? To try to live or exist, typically in spite of an accident, ordeal, or some difficult circumstances. Resilience, however, is having the ability to recover quickly. And there's that word quickly again. And if you heard Jerry speak last week, you know that you don't always recover quickly, and sometimes it'll take a lifetime, and sometimes it might not happen at all that you recover. So when I told a friend of mine that she knows my history pretty well in my life, and I said I needed to talk about resilience, and she says, oh, that ought to be a piece of cake for you, because I think you're really resilient. And I said, of course I possess some resilience. I think we all possess some resilience. But when I think of real resilience, first I think of people like maybe Rosa Parks and all of the other social justice, civil rights leaders. I think of the suffragettes. I think of the Native Americans who to this day continue to fight for their rights and freedom and land. I think of the Stonewall rioters. I think of victims of abuse. I think of the Ukrainians. I think of the citizens of Uvalde, or any group of disenfranchised or marginalized people who are battered on a daily basis sometimes, but continue to get up and up and up again because they need to if they want to live with dignity and freedom. Then there's the resilience of well-known figures like Walt Disney, who was told by his boss he didn't have an ounce of talent, and he followed his dreams and created a dynasty. There's the resilience of John Walsh, whose 6-year-old son Adam was murdered, and he went on to create and host America's Most Wanted, helping people find justice. There is Michael Jordan, who had numerous failures before he became a GOAT. Does everybody know GOAT these days? Okay, all righty. And then there's Bethany Malani Hamilton, who began surfing at age 3. Her left arm was bitten off by a shark when she was 13. She lost 60% of her blood that day, and within a month she was back in the water, and then she went back to professional surfing. There's a movie about her, by the way, Soul Surfer. And then there's the movies and TV shows we've seen, probably a bunch of them, documentaries. The never give up attitude of the show's heroes inspire us to be resilient, or maybe aspire to the resilience we see in them. Okay, some well-known examples are Rocky. We all know that one, the story about how life can hit you hard and you have to take the hits and keep on going. There's a movie, Beautiful Boy, the story of a methamphetamine heroin addict, and it's a story of his travels through his recovery. There's a movie, a documentary called Heroin, the story of a West Virginia fire chief who spends her days in endless cycles of reviving drug addicts. And then there's He Named Me Malala, the story of a young Pakistani activist who was shot in the head by the Taliban at age 15. There's hundreds and hundreds of examples of movies and shows, and we've probably seen a smattering of them in our lives. And finally, for the rest of us all, there's COVID, the saga of COVID, and who hasn't had to be resilient and adapt to our changed reality? Illness, loss, grief, fear, uncertainty, isolation, and loneliness are just some of the handful of things we're having to deal with, and that still go on to this day. But unlike the movies, we are not all standouts in terms of resilience, and I certainly don't qualify as having that measure. On one hand, I'd love to tell you that I spent 2 nights on a 10-foot rocky cliff 100 feet above the Grand Canyon floor before I was rescued. Or maybe that I ate wild berries and mushrooms for 2 weeks while I was lost in the wilderness, but I can't tell you any of that. Or maybe that, I stood up, maybe a different scenario, that I stood up to a thug on the corner who was harassing an Asian American saying that they caused COVID. Any of these would show resilience, but again, I just don't have that measure. But my life isn't over, and it may be tested yet. I don't know what's in the future. But I do have a fair amount of resilience just for life's trials and tribulations. And I give credit to my parents, but mostly my mom, because I think I spent the most time with her. And I'll tell you a little bit about her. I think a lot of it I learned through her intention, and some of it was through osmosis. My mom grew up during the Depression, one of 7 children in a poor family whose father was an alcoholic. He was a functioning one most of the time, but an alcoholic nonetheless. She married my dad, who was a pretty heavy drinker in his early years, and who gave her some pretty good reasons to be pissed off, at least early on. He got it together and changed, and all worked out fine. She had 6 children and 3 miscarriages, 6 to care for and 3 to mourn. And while I never felt poor, I'm sure there were many times when my folks wondered how they're going to manage to feed and clothe and educate us. Education was important, and Catholic education cost money that they didn't always have. She endured the meddlings of a sometimes very difficult mother-in-law, my grandmother, who occasionally created problems in her marriage. My grandma even lived across the street from us in her later years to keep an eye on things. My mom grieved the loss of her husband of 56 years when she was 80 and beginning to show early signs of memory loss. And she lived in her house in the country, somewhat isolated for a year before moving closer to her kids. And she remained resilient through the dementia that robbed her of her memories and life connections, engaging with others and continuing to make friends through smiles and gestures. My mom was always one to go with the flow and stay in the moment. She was one of those who said, "When life gives you lemons, make lemon meringue pie. It is much better than lemonade." She lived her life always looking for the best in people and situations. She would seek and usually find some bit of silver lining. She helped me and my sibs through the childhood losses of deceased pets, lost friendships, not being popular in school, bad first dates, and broken hearts. And she did it with such grace. And when we were somewhat older, she taught us that some hurts simply couldn't be avoided, were just part of living, and will make us stronger. A resilient woman teaching us to be resilient. These are some of the lessons that she taught me. Know what you can control and know what you can't. She taught me that if we can't control anything else, we can always control our attitudes. Look at the positive side of a bad situation. She nearly always found one. Find another way to look at a particular circumstance. She would say, for instance, instead of being sad that you can't see your friend today, be grateful to have her as a friend. Tomorrow's another day. Today, counselors and therapists use the term reframing to help their clients view situations in different and more positive lights to help them cope. So my mom was really ahead of her time. It's okay to fall down, she said, but you have to get back up and try again. It will probably be easier the second or third time around. She taught us to use humor to lighten the load. My mom, always a child at heart, loved to laugh and to play, and did so even on her deathbed. I could talk about others' traumas and resilience. There's hundreds of books, there's hundreds of movies, there's hundreds of shows, and they're all great people, and you can pick up the book anytime. But I thought I'd talk about my own resilience because it's probably closer to home for some of you. I don't know you, and you may have really tragic lives in some respect, or traumas that I don't know about. And to those I can't speak. I can only talk about my own life and the resilience I needed to get from where I was to where I am today. I'm fortunate that I've never had what I consider real tragedies in my life, just life happening. Okay. I've had some traumas, for sure, some physical, but most real. So I'll share a few and just describe how resilience helped me to move forward in life. I got pregnant at 17 and had a baby at 18 that I gave up for adoption. And while I spent some years looking at the faces of children who might be his age for some type of resemblance, I went on with my young person life, getting a job as a nursing assistant, sharing an apartment with another girl named Patty, making new friends, dating. I had enough youthful naivete and enthusiasm for life. That was really fledgling resilience. I still carry a sadness with me about not knowing my son, but it's no longer too heavy for my heart. I had a failed marriage and was divorced at 24. While I had wanted very badly for it to work, I realized we weren't really compatible. I met him in a bar. That might have been an indication that I should have looked elsewhere. And we closed him down, usually. He suffered from extreme depression and medicated it with alcohol. And he wasn't into seeking help. I viewed the divorce as saving my own life rather than feeling like a failure as a wife. Reframing the situation and not blaming myself for the failed marriage helped me to move forward. Afterwards, I did work on myself, trying to be a better and more understanding person. By then I was a nurse, and that helped me immensely. I was working every day with people who demonstrated tremendous resilience under some really difficult circumstances. And many of them were real inspirations to me. I had a 15-year relation with the absolute wrongest person ever. I know wrongest isn't a word, but it's so appropriate for the situation. I knew 6 months into the relationship that it was kind of rocky, and by a year I knew it was oppressive and sometimes even dangerous. He was a narcissistic personality, the kind that love-bomb you and then use your weakness to gain control. During this time, I desperately needed distraction, and I went back to school and obtained my bachelor's in nursing. I found a great job that was really solid and gave me peace. My relationship eventually went from partner to housemate, but it was always toxic. For it to have lasted 15 years certainly shows some resiliency on my part, but it also shows a tremendous measure of emotional ignorance. I finally cut the albatross from around my neck. The unfortunate part was losing my relationship with his 5-year-old son, JJ, who I adored and essentially mothered. He was another child lost to me. I entered survival mode for a bit, doing only what was necessary to stay alive and stay afloat. The loss of JJ was immensely painful in my life, bordering on unbearable. I was working the night shift in a large facility. As a supervisor, I had to make rounds in the building, and so every night I would go down to the basement. Some said it was haunted, and it really was kind of creepy. But I would go into the bathroom, and I would scream as loud as I could, primal scream. And it actually was a great stress reliever and helped calm me enough to carry on. I did spend some months in self-examination afterwards. I had lost my self-esteem and my confidence. I knew my parents didn't raise me to be a dummy. And I tried to figure out not why I had gotten into the relationship, but why I let it go for 15 years the way I did. So I saw a counselor for a time, and it helped a little bit, but I finally just had to box it up, put it up on the shelf, and label it as heavy-duty learning experience and move on. I didn't know what else to do with it at that point. The silver lining, if I can call it that, was that I no longer felt the daily stress of living with someone who didn't respect me and abused me emotionally. It was time to get up and move on. Some years later, I was able to reestablish my relationship with JJ, and in fact, I'll be at his wedding on October 8th. Then at 44, I finally allowed myself to be free and to love who I felt drawn to. I met the love of my life, and we spent almost 20 years together before I lost her to cancer 4 years ago. After she died and my family left, I went into real survival mode for some weeks. I worked because I had a job, and I had a mortgage, and I had a car payment. But my heart wasn't in the care that I was giving to my patients, and it was really unfair to them. I ate because I got hungry, and sometimes I ate beans or corn or tuna fish right out of the can standing at the kitchen sink. I had 4 dogs to care for, but instead of taking them out for their much-loved daily walks, I opened the back door and said, "Go walk yourself." I often went to sleep in the clothes I had worn that day and worked in. My house, my yard, and my life were very unkempt. I finally moved out of survival mode and began to bounce back. In the big picture of life, it happened relatively quickly, but it felt like months and months and months had gone by. I realized there was much more life to live, and Cece, who was my partner, wouldn't have wanted me to be wasting it this way. In fact, one of her last directives to me was, be happy, be political, and find another good woman. Once again, it was my nursing work that initially really helped me. So many patients I saw were dealing with hardships and pain and rising above it to live their best lives. I had so very much to be thankful for. Finally, there was a test of living alone through the worst days of the pandemic. At first, I had to see patients, some in COVID-filled nursing homes, and others vulnerable to the virus in their own homes. The fear and anxiety of those early days of 2020 were harrowing in some respects. But I looked at what I could control, my vigilance in properly using my PPE and adhering strictly to CDC guidelines, and I looked for positives with every patient visit. They were scared too, and calm and reassurance was something I could offer them, at least temporarily. The support offered by my employer and fellow nurses was pretty amazing and helped us all get through some really scary days. So here I am today, once again, thriving, caring for my home, caring for my dogs, working 2 part-time jobs, participating in our UU congregation, volunteering at our wild neighbors across the street when I can. I found new love without really looking for it. Life is good and I'm pretty happy. But lest you think all this happened without outside help, let me say this. I do have pretty good measure of resilience and positivity, but there were so many people who helped me along the way. My mom and dad, who although they weren't with me, gave me a really good foundation. My family, who have always been a source of tremendous love, helped as well. Co-workers who covered for me some days when I just couldn't work right. Friends who called me to check in or made me go out and have fun with them. A counselor who helped me see the real good in my life. Amy, my neighbor, who has become a good friend and introduced me to the fellowship of this UU community when I needed one and had none. Even my dogs, who needed me to bounce back and be a good caregiver for them, helped me out of my slump. As an aside, AA and most other support groups operate on the premise that when we're hurting, others can help prop us up. And that is really a truism in my life for sure. So resilience, we all have some, and we can learn new ways to help increase and reinforce it in our lives. We can reframe our situations. We can look for the positives in difficult times. We can look closely at what we can control and start controlling it. And we can laugh when it's appropriate. Sometimes life is ridiculously funny. Remember too that we can and should reach out to others in their need. People who have suffered through trauma or tragedy or loss aren't always in the best position to ask for help when they need it and make connections. Resilience can run low and is often in need of boosting. If we're able, we should offer a helping hand, a listening ear, a shared meal, or even a shared silence. If you know them well enough, even the name of a counselor or therapist can be offered if the need is great. I'm going to wind up with a poem about resilience by Langston Hughes. For those of you who don't know him, he was an African-American poet, social activist, novelist, playwright, and columnist from Joplin, Missouri, and one of the earliest innovators of the literary art form called jazz poetry. He is best known as a leader of the Harlem Renaissance. His poem is titled Still Here. I've been scarred and battered, my hopes the wind done scattered. Snow has frizzed me, sun has baked me. Looks like between 'em they done tried to make me stop laughing, stop loving, stop living. But I don't care, I'm still here.
Thank you so much. Each week we take a monetary offering to support our social justice work in the community. This support comes in the form of donations. This month our community partner is Orange Congregations in Mission, also known as OCIM. You may donate by putting cash or a check in the basket. Please put plate in the subject line on a check. You may also donate by going online to our website, uuchnc.org, or you can scan the QR code in your bulletin. David. QR codes. Oh, okay. Then you can go online to our website. Oh, and David Yelton will be performing Consolation by Felix Mendelssohn. Please join me in our prayer of collective gratitude found in your order of service. For the love that surrounds us every morning, for the friends beside us, and for the generous gifts just received, let us be truly grateful. Please stand in body or spirit for our closing hymn, There Is More Love, number 95. closing words are Seeking That Which Unites Us by Sarah Eileen Lawal. Spirit of life and love, in this time of uncertainty, of fear and angst, our nation holds its collective breath. In this time when rhetoric blusters about and words are used as weapons, our nation clenches its fists, tightens its shoulders, eyes squeezed shut, some are preparing for a fight. May we remember that we are a people of resilience. We have faced uncertainty before. We have weathered storms. We have been consumed by flames. We have risen like the phoenix from the ashes, and we will again. We the people, may we remember our shared humanity, our universal kinship, our interdependence, as we unclench our fists and breathe together, breathing in love and breathing out peace. May we recognize the spark of the divine inside of all of us, even those we are not quite sure about. In this time of uncertainty, we remember the good will go on as we work to move forward together, we the people seeking that which unites us, with our arms reached out wide for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May love prevail. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. Please join me in the prayer at the bottom of your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, my friends, and blessed be.